This meeting of the Board Governance and Personnel Committee is now being recorded for record-keeping purposes. By participating in this session, you're consenting to the recording, retention, and future viewing of this meeting. This meeting is now being live streamed. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I will now call to order this meeting of June 8th, 2021 of the Board Governance and Personnel Committee to order. Welcome all, and could we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Chair Philman?
Present.
Treasurer Garrity or designee?
I'm here.
Okay. Senator Hughes or designee?
Tony Marshowski for Senator Hughes.
Thank you. Mr. Thal?
Here.
And Secretary Vague or designee?
Here.
Thank you. Everyone is present.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. I would now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 28th, 2021 Board Governance and Personnel Committee meeting. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. First order of business is old business, and I'll turn it over to Chris Houston.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Under Board Docs, item 4A, we have as an agenda item the Service Fiduciary Review and Board of Self-Assessment final report, implementation of recommendations. Included in Board Docs, there are a couple of attachments. One is a memo from me to the committee to review what we're going to be discussing today. And then there are also two other attachments. One is entitled SIRS Implementation Roadmap. And then the other document is entitled Funston SIRS Implementation Committee Assignments. The purpose of today's review of this is that at the April 28 board meeting, the board took action to accept the Funston report, which was their fiduciary review and self-assessment work that they had completed. And the board had directed staff to engage with the appropriate standing committees to review the various recommendations that were included in the report, and then to further make recommendations to the board for action as appropriate. The final report contains 49 recommendations for implementation, and Funston had put together, so one of the attachments I mentioned was what they call the implementation roadmap. So they took a look at the 49 recommendations that were included in the report, and they gave us their thoughts as to prioritization, the difficulty of implementation of the various recommendations. They came up with suggestions as far as lead responsibilities from staff perspective, committee perspective, etc., support from consultants, and then recommendations as targeted completion deadlines. They had 1 to 6 months, they had 6 to 12 months, and they had a year or longer. So they did a nice job, frankly, of putting that together. So what staff did was we took a look at those, the implementation roadmap, and then we discerned as to which standing committee would be perhaps most appropriate to take a look at those recommendations, kind of work through them, and to come up with a game plan, in essence, relative to the implementation of those recommendations, if we were going to be implementing them. We identified 3 separate committees that we thought were most appropriate to review the recommendations, namely the investment committee. We have approximately 20 recommendations that we'd be recommending to go to the investment committee. We have 28 recommendations that we're recommending would be going to the Board Governance and Personnel Committee. And then there's 1 recommendation that would be presented to the Audit, Risk, and Compliance Committee. And as you recall from the report, the recommendations were really twofold. One were, as a follow-up to the fiduciary review, where they had looked at non-economic investment requirements, and there were 6 recommendations that came out of that. There was the asset liability matching process, which were 6 recommendations coming out of that. And those 2 tranches of recommendations, we discerned it was most appropriate to have the investment committee review those. There was one recommendation out of the fiduciary review pertaining to legislative positioning, whether the board would be reactive or proactive. We discerned that the Board Governance and Personnel Committee was appropriate to review that recommendation. There were 6 separate recommendations under the investment manager selection, due diligence, monitoring, and termination category. And again, we discerned that the investment committee was the appropriate committee to review that recommendation. Then the balance of the recommendations came really out of the self-assessment report. There was a governance structure. There were 4 recommendations that came out of that. We thought that the Board Governance and Personnel Committee was most appropriate to review those. There was a recommendation dealing with powers reserved for the board and delegations. We thought the investment committee was appropriate for that. Board meeting and operations, dealing primarily in investment area. That was investment committee was one of those aspects. But there are other 2 recommendations in that area which we thought were most appropriate for the Board Governance and Personnel Committee. Under board oversight and independent reassurance, that category, there were 2 recommendations. One of those would be going to the Board Governance Committee, and the other one to the Audit, Risk, and Compliance Committee. And then the whole board committees, how the committee structure works, we discerned that all of those, are 8 recommendations, that would be most appropriate for this committee to review. There were 5 recommendations in the category of board education and development, and we determined that the Board Governance Committee was most appropriate for that. There were 2 recommendations dealing with board interactions with staff. Again, we thought this committee, there were 2 recommendations for evaluation of board direct reports. We again thought this committee. And then finally, recommendations dealing with external advisors. And again, we discerned that the Board Governance and Personnel Committee was the most appropriate to review those recommendations. So what we're going to be doing is staff for the various committees will be reviewing those recommendations and rolling out into the near future. We'll be taking a look at those recommendations, presenting them to the various committees for their review and possible implementation or any other action that the committees would feel appropriate following up on the final report. So that's what our game plan is, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions regarding that.
Floor is open. Anybody? Okay, I don't see anybody. So thanks, Chris, for that report. And we're going into a strategic business plan.
Right. So this committee's work plan for this year provides that at each committee meeting that we will be providing updates on the progress on the strategic business plan. So included in board docs under item 4B, you'll find a memo from me along with a document which provides for the fiscal year 2021-22 strategic plan update. I'm sorry, it's the 2021-21 update that's in there that we have for you to review. And the progress has been really very, very good. The document that's in board docs has a color keyed chart to it, and when you look at that, you'll see that we've nearly completed or are close to completion on all of those recommendations. The outliers being 2, and those pertain to the CERIS 2.0 implementation. So the goal of the technical implementation of CERIS 2.0 has been delayed. As we've been reporting, we've been working closely with project managers who are overseeing the agency level implementation of CERIS 2.0, including the technical implementation, the change management, organization, transition, and cultural adoption. We've been working closely with the Bureau of Information Technologies, the service project managers, and our contractor on the project Infomatrix to coordinate and align the resources as appropriate to get us to a completion date. Most recently, we've been working with what we call a project task force, which has been established with leaders from all of the those areas, business areas, including Bureau of Information Technology, our project managers, and the contractor to align those resources as necessary. And we've come up with a project plan, which is very specific as far as a timeline for having, number one, having the development completed on the Ceres 2.0, which we anticipate to have done here by closer to the end of the summer. Then there's testing phases that have to be completed, what we call quality assurance testing, and then there's business analysis testing. Then we go into a stabilization and knowledge transition phase, and then we have user acceptance testing, execution phase, and all of this under the project schedule is for a project completion by the end of the year. The other strategic goal that's tied in with that is completing the business and cultural transition to Ceres 2.0, and that will slip into the next fiscal year as well, because that's tied into Ceres 2.0. Going forward, what we're going to be doing, probably at the July meeting, we'll be providing you with the goal matrix, if you will, for the fiscal year 21-22 strategic goals, and we'll be providing an update for the next year goals and identifying the owners of those goals, and then we'll be monitoring ongoing progress. We're very pleased as to the progress under the strategic plan, and we will continue to report to this committee on our progress. Any questions on any of that?
Floor is open for anybody. Okay. Seeing none, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We have no special presentations, nor do we have any new business. So at this point, we'll need a tee-up for the executive session.
Thank you, Chairman. There are two items on the executive session agenda. One is salary adjustments for several employees, and the other is the executive director search. The Sunshine Act allows the board or the committee to have an executive session to discuss any matter involving the employment, appointment, termination of employment, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of performance, promotion, or disciplining of any specific prospective public employee or current public employee employed or appointed by the State Employees Retirement Board. The items on the executive session agenda fall within that listing and therefore are appropriate subjects for executive session.
Okay.
Before we enter executive session, give us a minute to make a few technical changes on our end. As a reminder, the public meeting will resume on this live stream connection when the executive session is complete. In addition, text messaging is available. You just need to review our posted agenda on the CSRS website. Good afternoon. As a reminder, this Board Governance and Personnel Committee is being recorded and is now being live streamed. Thank you.
Okay. As indicated before we broke for executive session, there were issues dealing with personnel, and I have two motions that are now going to be presented to the public session. First, a motion is in order to approve the following salary adjustments effective the beginning of the next pay period, which is June 19th, 2021. Michael McGoey, Assistant Chief Financial Officer, new hourly rate will be $64.58 per hour. And Sarah McSurdy, the Chief Financial Officer, whose new hourly rate will be $86.51. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I hear a second. Roll call, please.
Sarah Philman,
Aye.
Treasurer Garrity,
Aye.
Ms. Marchowski for Senator Hughes,
Aye.
Mr. Thal,
Aye.
and Secretary Vague.
Aye.
All ayes, Chairman.
Thank you, everybody. And the second one has to deal with the executive director search. A motion is in order that the Board Governance and Personnel Committee recommend that the State Employees Retirement Board direct the Board Governance and Personnel Committee and SERS staff to conduct a search for executive director candidates. A motion to that effect, please.
So moved.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a second. Roll call, please.
Chair Feldman,
Aye.
Treasurer Garrity,
Aye.
Ms. Marchowski for Senator Hughes,
Aye.
Mr. Thal,
Aye.
and Secretary Vague.
Aye.
All ayes, Chairman.
Thank you very much. That concludes those motions from the executive session. Comments, concerns, questions? The floor is open. Okay. With that, our next meeting will be July 28th or 29th of 2021. Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you very much, everybody. Don't forget, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, the general board meeting will be convening. So thank you for your time. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.